Hi friends, it's Miki and it is Monday again. Today I'm going to be doing part 2 of my how to cover songs video series. To be honest, I'm a little bit tired right now because after the weekend I'm always really tired from dealing with the kids. So I'm having my second gigantic cup of coffee and I only ever usually have one. So I'm going to be like halfway through this video, but I need it. Let's take a nice big sip of caffeine. Also, this is really bad for your voice, so I don't recommend drinking this at all. Do as I say, not as I do. The other thing is I'm going really 80s today. I'm wearing bright pink eyeshadow, which is something every 37-year-old mom of 3 should do. Not! And I'm wearing a tube top, and it kind of looks like I'm naked right now, but I promise you I am, in fact, wearing clothes. So today we're going to be talking about memorizing lyrics. This is not something that I particularly struggle with. I have a pretty good memory. Although it has gotten a little bit worse since I became a mom. Mom brain is totally a thing, but I know for a lot of people this is something that's very challenging. So I'm gonna give you some tips that I found helpful. And there are certain situations where I do find remembering lyrics difficult. For example, when I get very nervous, so if I haven't played a show for a long time and then I go out and do a show and I get very nervous and I get that rush of adrenaline, there have been times when I've forgotten my lyrics and forgotten the chords to the song and forgotten what planet I'm on. This technique is something that I found that's really helpful to cement the lyrics in your brain so you won't ever forget them. And this is not something that I invented, so I don't want to take credit for it, but I haven't really seen it in the singing space. I've seen it more in the public speaking space and with people that are in acting and have to memorize monologues or lines. Monologues are lines, but either monologues or lines where you're speaking with another person, a dialogue. And so the technique is visualization, which if you don't know, it just means associating visual imagery or pictures with the lines that you're saying. And if there are other singing channels that have covered this, forgive me, I haven't seen any videos on it, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist. Why do we use this technique? So research has shown that when you learn a new piece of information, you create a synaptic connection in your brain. And if you learn the same piece of information using multiple modalities, that connection becomes much more indelible. So for example, if I'm trying to learn a classical piano piece, I can either learn it by ear, meaning I can listen to somebody playing it either live or on a recording, and then I can sound it out. I can learn it visually by reading it off the page like I'm reading a book. I can learn it verbally by saying the notes out loud or singing it. And I can also learn it tactilely or kinesthetically, meaning I can memorize the way that my fingers feel as they're playing the piece on the piano, the motions that I make, etc. So now I've reinforced this connection by learning it in multiple ways. And it's much less likely to fly out of my head in times of stress, and it's going to be much more easy for me to recall that information. So one of the areas of my life that visualization has been especially helpful in is with my sense of direction. I have the worst sense of direction in the world. I couldn't find my way out of a wet paper bag. And before GPS was invented, I had a really hard time driving. I think it has something to do with growing up in New York City and everything is kind of like on a grid. So when you leave there, it's very confusing. But creating a visual map for myself and memorizing landmarks, so really taking note of certain buildings and the direction that I'm turning, really helped me to mitigate that natural weakness or deficiency that I have. And this is the exact same technique that we're going to be applying today in our memorization of lyrics. We're going to create these visual landmarks that we then can retrace our way using these landmarks so that we don't have the words fly out of our heads. So I've taken a song that I don't know the lyrics to yet, so this will be fair, and I've printed them out. It's the audition song from the movie La La Land, sung by Emma Stone. And the reason that I've printed out a hard copy is because we're going to be doing some drawing, and that's obviously a lot easier on a piece of paper than on a screen. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to listen to the song a couple times and just kind of read along with the lyrics. And you're not trying to memorize anything at this point. You're just getting familiar with the cadence and the way that the lyrics scan. And then you're going to start this visualization process. And what you're going to do is you're going to read through the lyrics again, and this time try to figure out the emotion or emotions that the song is trying to convey. So generally a song is going to have more than one emotion. It's not just going to be static. There's going to be some kind of journey or emotional arc that the songwriter is trying to take you on. So let's read through it together, and then we'll go over the meaning of the lyrics and the emotion that it invokes. So the first verse, she's talking about the main character's aunt, and she says, "She told us that she jumped into the river once barefoot," and then the song begins. "She leapt without looking and tumbled into the Seine," which of course is a river in Paris. "The water was freezing. She spent a month sneezing, but said she would do it again." So immediately there's a sense of abandon, right? You're leaping without looking. You're not worrying about the consequences. You're just going with it. And then there's this line that's a little bit tongue-in-cheek and funny that provides a little bit of levity. So it says, "The water was freezing. She spent a month sneezing, but said she would do it again." So even though this is kind of a heart-wrenching song, it's not so serious that there's no humor in it. Then it goes to the chorus. "Here's to the ones who dream, foolish as they may seem. Here's to the hearts that ache. Here's to the mess we make." So this is really the heart of the song. And generally speaking, the chorus is going to be what really drives home the point of the song. So it's about somebody who's an artist and is living for their convictions, living in a way that they throw caution to the wind. They might seem foolish to other people. They might get a lot of grief and heartache, and their life might be a mess, but it's worth it in some sense, right? The next verse says, "She captured a feeling, sky with no ceiling, the sunset inside a frame." So a really beautiful image, right? Very coming from nature, something that's very transporting. And it's that feeling when you live in a way that's really passionate and dedicated to something that's bigger than yourself. It's a very beautiful way of living. And then it says, "She lived in her liquor and died with a flicker. I'll always remember the flame." So this is a very tragic line, right? So this is somebody that's living for their art, but they end up with nothing in the end. She has a very tragic, difficult tale. She lived in her liquor. She died with nothing. But I'll always remember the passion that she lived with. I'll always remember the flame. Then it goes back to that chorus. Same lyrics. "Here's to the ones who dream, foolish as they may seem. Here's to the hearts that ache. Here's to the mess we make." And it's also personalized, right? It's not "here's to the mess they make." She's singing about herself. She's also this artist that has this need to live in a way that's bigger than herself. Then comes the bridge. "A bit of madness is key to give us new colors to see. Who knows where it will lead us, and that's why they need us." So again, it's like there's this thin line between genius and insanity, right? And to be an artistic genius is to have a bit of madness about you. But it enables you to live in a way that opens you up to experiences that other people can't have. You have this fine hypersensitivity that allows you to have transcendence and flow. Who knows where it will lead us? Again, that abandon, right? But that's why they need us. Art moves culture forward. So other people who might be more reserved or cautious need people that are going to take risks and go out there and do crazy things. So bring on the rebels, the ripples from pebbles, the painters and poets and plays. Again, all the things that we need in society. And then it goes back to the chorus, but it's a little bit different. "Here's to the fools who dream, crazy as they may seem. Here's to the hearts that break. Here's to the mess we make." And then the outro. "I trace it all back to then. Her and the snow and the Seine. Smiling through it, she said she'd do it again." So there's a sense of nostalgia, right? It's this bittersweetness. But even at the end, even though she had this tragic life and died in her liquor and died with a flicker, she said she would do it again. So it was worth it in the end. So for me, this emotional arc of this song is really that feeling of giving yourself over to your passion and your art and living with meaning, no matter how scary and costly that might be, and that even if there is a bittersweetness to living that way, it's worth it in the end. So that's kind of the emotional arc for me. And I would read the song that you're doing a bunch of times. I would think about the emotions that it conveys, and I would also think about the meaning of the lyrics, which we also did a little bit of now. And these lyrics, even though there are a lot of metaphors in there, they're pretty literal in a certain sense. They're not super difficult to penetrate. There are going to be other lyricists who write things that are much more abstract or obtuse that are harder to interpret. So if you picked a song that's a little bit harder to find a way into lyrically, there are a lot of websites online where you can plug in the name of the song and it'll give you the interpretation of either the writer or of other people that have listened to the lyrics. And I think some of those are called like song meanings, and there's one that's called Genius. You could just Google, there's like a million of them. And that can be very helpful in interpreting a song that's a little bit more abstract. Now that we've figured out what the song means, generally speaking, we're gonna start the visualization process. And we're gonna start associating visual imagery with the words themselves. These lyrics are great because there's a lot of visual imagery that's already packed in there, so it's not going to be hard to come up with images. And then what we're going to do is every time we sing the song, we're going to play those images in our mind in sequence, like it's a movie, and that's going to help us remember the lyrics. So let's take the first verse. We have leapt without looking and tumbled into the Seine. The water was freezing. She spent a month sneezing, but said she would do it again. So for me, as I mentioned before, the general feeling that I get from this is that sense of abandonment, leaping without looking. So giving yourself over to the unknown and how exhilarating that can be. And so what immediately comes to my mind is a couple of years ago, I went skydiving. And this was a very big deal for me because I'm afraid of heights, but I had just taken the bar exam to become a lawyer and I was waiting for my results. And this is another lifetime ago. I was a lawyer for a few years. And I thought nothing could be more terrifying than taking this big exam and not knowing whether I had passed or failed after so many weeks of intense study. And the only thing that I could think of that was even more frightening than that was jumping out of an airplane. So to get my mind off of waiting for the bar results, I jumped out of an airplane. And even though it was terrifying, letting go and putting my trust in the unknown and just embracing that was very liberating and invigorating. It made me feel very alive and it made me feel like I could do anything. And so this verse reminds me of that. So I'm going to draw an airplane. I'm going to do that right now. And I'm not the greatest artist in the world. Perhaps some of you out there are more artistically, visually inclined. So you're going to see my airplane and you're totally going to laugh at me. But it just needs to be meaningful to you. So it can be a stick figure, as you can see. Here's my lovely airplane, and there's me jumping out of it with a parachute, a nice little stick figure. So that's what I'm gonna think of, that feeling of jumping out of an airplane and just letting go when I sing those lyrics. But that image only works for the first two lines for me. So leapt without looking and tumbled into the Seine. That's that idea of leaping out of an airplane. But then we have the water was freezing. She spent a month sneezing, but said she would do it again. So that's kind of tongue in cheek. It's a little bit funny. And what I'm gonna do for that is I'm gonna think of another sensory input. So not just a visual image, I'm gonna actually think about a feeling. And you can use feelings as well. And that can really reinforce the information in another way. So I'm gonna think about that feeling of when you step out of cold water and the air blows on you and your skin gets that chicken skin kind of goosebumpy feeling and all the little hairs stand up on it. That's what I'm gonna think about when I get to that line. The water was freezing and she spent a month sneezing. So I'm gonna draw, a little arm here. And then I'm gonna draw all the little hairs sticking up on that arm. So there's my lovely picture for that. So now we move on to the chorus, and it's here's to the ones who dream, foolish as they may seem, here's to the hearts that ache, here's to the mess we make. So the more that you can personalize this, obviously, the more indelible that memory is going to be. And so for me, when I read this line, I think about heartache, and I'm going to think about a specific person who I love very much, who I'm missing that I can't see. And so that's something that's very personal to me. And I'm going to just make a very generic kind of broken heart here as the image. But that's shorthand to me, and when I see that, I know that I'm thinking of that person. So there's it kind of looks like a cookie that broke in half. Now we go on to the second verse. She captured a feeling, a sky with no ceiling, the sunset inside a frame. So this already is such an evocative description. And I was flying back from Florida a few days ago, and I was on an airplane, and I was looking out the window as the sun was setting. And for some reason, the sunset just looks so much more impressive when you're on top of the clouds than underneath them. And it just was so beautiful. It was red and orange and just such bright colors. And I saw the whole thing from the beginning to end. And so I'm going to think about the sunset inside of the frame of that plane window when I sing that lyric. Oh boy, I don't know how I'm going to depict this here. So I'm making a little plane window, a little portal, and then I'm just going to make some clouds that I'm looking down on and all the different colors in the sky. This might even be better if you want to use some colored pencils or some markers and make it really visual for yourself. So I don't know, this is going to look like a urinal cake to you or something. It's not a very good drawing, but you do you, whatever it takes to kind of have a shorthand for yourself. Okay, and then she lived in her liquor and died with a flicker. I'll always remember the flame. So for me, this brings to mind a candle that's just gone out, and you see kind of the smoke rising off of the wick. So that's going to be my image for that. Then we get back to the chorus, so you can use the same image because it's the same lyrics again. So then we get to the bridge. A bit of madness is key to give us new colors to see. Who knows where it will lead us, and that's why they need us. So for this, I'm going to put a key, and I really love keys. For anybody that knows me, they know that I'm kind of obsessed with keys, and there's a lot of reasons for this, but one of them is that when I started doing music again a few years ago after I gave up law and went back to my first love, I started seeing keys everywhere, and it was kind of this like little joke with myself that this was showing me that I was on the right path or something. It sounds very hokey and new agey, but that's what happened. And so I really like keys. And so a bit of madness is key is just a perfect line for me, and I'm going to put a key to remind me of that line. Then we have the second half of the bridge, which says, so bring on the rebels, the ripples from pebbles, the painters and poets and plays. So for me, I immediately think of a pebble falling in water and seeing those concentric ripples that come out. So I'm just going to draw some concentric circles for myself for that. Then we get the chorus again, and then we have the outro. I trace it all back to then, her and the snow and the Seine, smiling through it, she said she'd do it again. So for me, for some reason, when I hear that line, I think of somebody that's crying and emotional but smiling. So there's that like bittersweetness to it. So I'm going to draw myself a little emoji here with somebody that's smiling but crying. So there you have it. That's the whole visualization map that I've made for myself. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply fold over the words, and I'm just going to look at the pictures. And I'm going to try to recite the lyrics just looking at the pictures. And I'm going to construct this narrative in my mind, and then I'm going to memorize the order of the pictures, which is much easier, let me tell you, than memorizing all these words. Because let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pictures to memorize. You just have to memorize the pictures in the order, and then as you're saying them, you visualize those images, and the words will hopefully pop into your mind. Okay, so I have now listened to the song through a couple times, and I've followed along with my pictures here, and I'm going to try to sing the song by memory using just my image map. So this is an experiment. I have not memorized the song before doing this video. Let's see if it worked. Leapt without looking and tumbled into the Seine. The water was freezing. She spent a month sneezing, but said she would do it again. Here's to the ones who dream, foolish as they may seem. Here's to the hearts that Here's to the mess we make. She captured a feeling, a sky with no ceiling, the sunset inside a frame. She lived in her liquor and died with a flicker. I'll always remember the flame. Here's to the ones who dream, foolish as they may seem. Here's to the hearts that ache. Here's to the mess we make. She told me a little madness is key, to give us new colors to see. Who knows where it will lead us, and that's why they need us. So bring on the rebels, the ripples from pebbles, the painters and poets and plays. And here's to the fools who dream, crazy as they may seem. Here's to the hearts that ache. Here's to the mess we make. I trace it all back to then, her and the snow and the Seine, smiling right through it. She said she would do it again. There you go. Very easy. So hopefully this was helpful. Try it out and let me know how it works for you. And I hope I will see you back here next Monday for the next part of this series. It's going to be on breathing. See you then.